Hello and welcome back to CCJ 3701, Research Methods in Criminology. I'm Dr. Jensen, and I thought it would be really important to walk through the section of theory in detail so you feel a bit more prepared to draft this section, especially for the first time, as you may or may not have had a lot of experience doing a section as unique as theory. So let's jump in. So first and foremost, it's important to keep track of the goals of this section, so that way you have a purpose and can develop your strategy on how to do this. So first, the goal of the theory section is to inform the reader of your theoretical perspective in which your research has been framed in. So the whole purpose here is to walk the reader through the process by which your relationship that you propose to exist actually happens. Now, those of you that have had criminological theory class already may find this section a little bit easier, and some of you have had experience with theories being presented in other criminology classes and may be familiar with some of the theories and literature out there. But I also provide a quick overview of many popular theories in criminology as a part of your playlist in this section, if you want to review those as well, so that you can look through them and develop which one seems to fit your ideas. So on the second bullet here, you can select whatever social science-based theory you would like. Now, some students say, I don't know if social science is really getting after the explanation I have in mind, because maybe I think this behavior or experience happens more biologically or psychologically. If you are drawn to biological theories, there are biosocial theories to consider here as well that can bring into account processes happening in the body, mental health, and social psychological phenomena, as well as context that shapes experience. So again, as a criminologist or someone studying social science, we need to adhere to those theories that prioritize the way things happen using identity, using context, as driving factors, okay? If you get a little stuck here, please reach out to myself as we can brainstorm together to determine a theory that could fit best. Now, many theories could work, but only choose one theory as your explanation of how your topic works and the relationships. Now, oftentimes students are kind of torn between maybe two theories or possibly three or four. This is the reason I do not suggest you choosing multiple theories. Number one, you do not have time to go into detail on multiple theories. This is a shorter section of the paper, and to give each of those theories adequate treatment would take a lot of space, and the other part of the problem that occurs is the fact that now the reader is chasing two different explanations of how this behavior or relationship could exist, and it's very confusing to keep track of both. So if you keep switching gears, eventually one's going to come out the champion that's going to fit better. So again, theoretical integration, trying to combine theories, is challenging. In fact, there are dissertations that don't even succeed at doing this, and those tend to be hundreds of pages long. So this is not that paper to do that in. Choose one theory as your explanation and run with it. We'll show you some examples in a minute. Now, if you have a secondary theory you want to use, keep it, right? So just tuck it kind of off to the side for now, because there is a good chance you could use it as an alternative explanation in the back of the paper. So you may have one that's a preferential theory or that's the primary focus, but you could have a secondary one that you use a little bit later. But again, for the theory section, select only one theory. If you select more than one, this is going to set up problems for you in your paper and result in deductions. Finally, provide rationale and evidence for your choice. This is where you elaborate on your theory and you explain the process by which your theory is working. So overall, your theory sections run between 1 and 3 pages. You need to relate your research to theory, again, bringing in those concepts and making the connections. It's not a long explanation. Don't feel like you have to put someone through an entire theory lecture or seminar. You can bring up kind of the main concepts and then take off from there. The first paragraph in your section should propose the relationship, and then you should define your concepts. So before you run off into a grand explanation of how your behavior or experiences work, you need to make sure everyone's on the same page. In the second paragraph, introduce the theory and its ideas. So give a little bit of treatment and background into what the theory is about, its concepts, its tenets and markers, and some of those concepts you're going to be bringing up later so that they are already familiar to the reader before you just start dropping words and ideas in there that they are not familiar with. And then finally, in the subsequent paragraphs, you apply and describe that process by which your theory explains your topic. So now that we have your concepts defined, your relationship proposed, the theory presented, now we're ready to see how does your theory actually explain your specific topic? What process happens to go from one to the other? This predictor, this identity, status, or behavior setting up this outcome. So now we're going to take a moment to go into a theory section. So this is a sample theory section, which is a part of your sample paper collection. So you can go look at this later if you would like to, but it really does a nice job at setting everything up. So let's go through this together. So in here, you can see, here's our proposition. It's proposed that parental incarceration will increase the likelihood of maladaptive behavior in children. So again, you want to put your independent variable and dependent variable in that proposition and propose that the relationship is there. You can also make a specific prediction if you want to. So in this case, it says it will increase the likelihood of behaviors happening, or you can talk about other specific predictions or directions that the behavior will take. In the next few sentences, this is the conceptualization. So in here, we see that the independent variable is parental incarceration, and then we define it, right? We conceptualize, which means any period of time spent in jail or prison, including both short-term or long-term confinement that coincides with being a parent of children. So now it's very clear when we say parental incarceration, it could include these things. The dependent variable is maladaptive behavior. Maladaptive behavior is defined as behavior that interferes with an individual's activities of daily living or ability to adjust to and participate in particular settings. These behaviors can also be more severe behaviors that have a major effect on a person's day-to-day life, such as self-harm or harmful or dangerous sexual behaviors. And then again, you can get into some more specifics. Maybe you've already chosen some variables that will represent this, and you can say a statement like this. For purposes of this study, maladaptive behavior includes physical fights, depression, difficulty paying attention in school, and past drug use. So they selected a few specific behaviors that would illustrate these major effects as well as the harm. So now that we're very clear with what we're studying in this particular paper, now we can jump into the theory itself. When adolescent behavior and a child's ability or inability to adapt to the norms of society is discussed, some insight can be gained from both the strain and labeling theories. So it's okay to bring up other theories, but it should be just a quick mention. Don't go into a lot of detail. Yet, if we want to dive deeper beyond society's influences, one should consider the significance of familial relationships too. And then here's the theory. Hershey's social bond theory from 1969 gives us a better understanding of how people rely on social bonds to teach them how to abide by society's expectations and creates a blueprint for one's future. When the bonds are weak or broken, one questions his or her self-worth and will often withdraw or rebel. Hershey's social control theory suggests that delinquent adolescents fail to develop societal bonds, consisting of attachment to parents, peers, and school, occupational and educational commitment, academic involvement, and belief in social rules and convention. Now again, in this section here, you can see we are very much attributing the theory to the theorist. So you may find yourself needing to add a few citations in a few places so that the reader can follow up on further detail if they choose. Now we're going to apply the theory. When we apply the bonding theory to parental incarceration, we can see how experiencing this in the home for a child can deteriorate or stress that familial bond, which in turn creates problems with social bonds. In addition, the stigma that comes with an incarcerated parent can make children a target of ridicule and deters them from engaging socially in places like school where they may be overtly treated differently. Furthermore, these feelings of isolation or stigma are of special concern when we address race and gender. African American men of low socioeconomic status are overrepresented within the criminal justice system, and historical racial prejudices have stereotyped African American boys as dangerous. This puts low-income black boys in a particularly vulnerable position to display maladaptive behavior compared to economically affluent white boys. With fewer economic resources to pull from, combined with being a race that is targeted by the criminal justice system, they become a part of the concentrated disadvantaged. The socio-cultural context of disadvantage and higher rates of absent parents due to incarceration compared to white children can make bonds for those children between both the absent parent and the caretaker rife with conflict and weakened to a point they become unreliable. This dynamic can cause children to exhibit delinquent behavior and experience poor family processes affecting how caretakers and children interact with each other, the ways in which they communicate, and general family satisfaction. So I'm going to stop here for a moment. You can see they're actually bringing in a few talking points that may also have arrived at inside their literature they reviewed. So you can definitely take a few more citations from your literature to illustrate some talking points that you want to bring up here. Now, you also probably saw they brought up a couple other factors that are playing roles in their research. So I often get the question when people draft theory sections, they say, do we have to include discussion of our control variables that we've already selected? And my answer is this, not necessarily. It's not required to do so. However, if you read a lot of articles in the literature review section that suggested certain other factors also very much matter in terms of how these outcomes occur, it also suggests to you that you might want to control for them too. And you may have a natural place to kind of bring these up again in the theory section where you talk about other ways the theory is illustrated, not just by the main independent variable, in this case parental incarceration, but also other variables that maybe combine to make these effects much larger. So again, if you have an opportunity to bring up those control variables, I definitely invite you to do that. This also makes your very last section you write in this class a little bit easier to draw from. But again, it's not required, and you have to kind of look for the way at which this can happen. So if there isn't a natural, organic place to bring up some control variables, then don't force them in there. It's going to be awkward and clunky, and it might actually take away from the message you're trying to send. So keep in mind, you can definitely look for those opportunities. They are not required, but make sure it fits into your overall explanation. So we'll pick up where we left off. All of these family aspects suffer and can make family and social life difficult to maneuver for children. Therefore, higher levels of conflict lead to higher levels of maladjustment. We can conclude that a weakened family bond can create conflict, which in turn can directly affect a child's ability to adjust to the world around him or her. So in this last part, you can tell that they're focusing on one of the strongest parts of social bonding theory, which is attachment. And again, turning back to that independent variable that they think is most important at explaining maladaptive behavior, the lack of parental attachment due to incarceration. So again, you can illustrate that you really understand this theory and how it may work in your behavior by doing this kind of strategy. And again, they continue, in turn, as racial disparities may weaken bonds, religion may play an important role in strengthening them. The type of religion is irrelevant, but the process of being religious may have a positive impact on children. And in fact, they could add some citations in here because yes, we do find that religion does have a relationship with criminal offending. And it's very widely held up in research for many, many years. As a child's life becomes unstable, with a missing parent or a parent that comes and goes, the stability that comes from religion through community can teach children about society's expectations. If a parent is unable to connect with their children, religion could be a catalyst to join parents together or help a child find an alternative mentor to help him or her grapple with the confusion and instability of having a parent incarcerated. The institution of religion can feel inclusive for a child that feels stigmatized or isolated. Religion may also give children that sense of belonging necessary to avoid becoming vulnerable to maladaptive behavior. And then you want a good closer here. According to the social bond theory, attachment, commitment, involvement, and belief in common values are crucial in developing healthy relationships and adjusting to mainstream society. So again, we can kind of tell by the way this is written that this student is signaling certain other variables that may also matter when they get ready to run their tests and select their variables that they think will make predictions and have relationships with the outcome that they are interested in. So I would be not too surprised to find that they are controlling for race and gender. They may also be controlling for income or socioeconomic status, and certainly religion. So again, this is kind of an opportunity to bring these up, but not really required. But if you find that you're writing more about a control variable than you are about your main relationship, you might want to take a step back and say, maybe my main relationship is not the most important one to me. Maybe I really need to rethink what my topic's about and make that my main variable. So again, it's kind of up to you how you want to approach the weaving together of the process by which something works, the application of theoretical ideas. But make sure, again, you start off with your proposition, defining your concepts, your conceptualization, introducing your theory that you're going to use and its concepts, applying the theory and how it works in your behavior specifically. And again, if you have an opportunity to bring in some control variables, please take it. If not, continue to apply your theory to your behavior. And then make sure that you close the section accordingly so that we feel settled on the matter. The last idea that I will suggest before I wrap up this video is occasionally you can anticipate counter-arguments or criticisms to your theory as far as it leaving things out and so forth. So you can certainly maybe try to counteract those a little bit ahead of time by anticipating them up front. So some people like to use their closing paragraph to deal with counter-arguments and the ways that your theory could be challenged, and try to bring up some of those arguments to help kind of squash them a little bit so that you're ending with a very strong place and a very persuasive, convincing argument as to why your theory is worth testing. Because when you think about it, the application of theory and the empirical evidence to support your theory is coming up in the next two sections. So your variables should very much line up to what your theory is about. If you think bonds are important, you should have some variables that illustrate those bonds, right? If you think strain is important, you should have variables that illustrate strain, right? So again, really think about how your topic lines up with your variable choices and furthermore lines up with your theory. If you find some misalignment here, I can be helpful in helping you kind of regain your traction a little bit. So again, reach out if you have questions or want to brainstorm ideas. I know theory sections can definitely be challenging because they require a lot of abstract thinking. So feel free to brainstorm together with your lab partner, with classmates, or with me. And I wish you the best of luck on your theory section.